What is up, everybody? This is Sarah Kassam, registered social worker and psychotherapist from Rebel with a Cause in Toronto. And today I wanted to talk to you about the TV show The Good Place and how aspects of that story and plot line really mirror what it takes to get out of our own personal hell. For many of us, that could be sometimes we feel trapped in hell in our own bodies. Sometimes we feel trapped in hell in our own lives. And myth and story are a universal way to see ourselves in each other. They're an incredibly passive way, and I mean that in a good way, of getting the information that we need about what it takes to really be a hero in our own lives, without maybe coming in the front door, if you get what I mean. Like, a lot of the times it's hard to hear the truth, and story is an amazing way for us to consent to which aspects of wisdom we want to relate to. And something I've always really been into myself is pop culture, movies, TV, music. And what I want to start doing here is weave the threads of how those stories from pop culture actually relate to our own lives as we know them. And I have to say, I'm in Canada right now, and it's a huge bummer because I haven't had access to rewatching The Good Place. And so I'm very sorry for any Canadians who haven't seen it. I realized I watched it when I was in Nicaragua, and that's probably why I had access to it. But also, there's spoilers that are going to happen here today, and I'm really sorry. If you don't want spoilers, then I would not keep moving ahead. But The Good Place is a super brilliant and fun show about the afterlife, basically, about people who die and they go to the good place, which many of us would call heaven. And there's also a bad place, which many of us would call hell. And the huge cliffhanger at the end of season 1 is that, like, all of these like really compelling characters who think they're in the good place realize that they're actually in the bad place. And I was talking to a friend the other day about how so much of our daily lives and existence, we are being convinced is the good place, but is actually the bad place. Living under patriarchy is actually hell. Living under capitalism is actually hell. But if you can become successful in those paradigms, you are rewarded. So you think you're in the good place and you're really in the bad place. And it took these characters an entire season to realize that they were actually in the bad place. And sadly, there are a lot of people in this world that will never realize that they are actually in the bad place. That all of this status and reward they've sought have cost them dearly and is actually an incredibly destructive force in their lives. And I actually would love to do this in many parts because there's just so much we can learn from that show. It's just so brilliant. But because I haven't been able to rewatch it to jog my memory, I'm just sticking right now to some very surface level things. But the first stage of healing, really sustainable healing so that you can get from the bad place to the good place, is facing the truth, is being like, holy shit, I am in the bad place. Because the story arc from there, of course, is that they can only figure out how to get out of the bad place when they accept that that's where they really are. And a lot of being able to stand on your own, be the hero in your own story, is being able to face the worst case scenario without becoming reactive. Because the thing is, panic is antithetical to strategy. And you need strategy to get out of the bad place. You need strategy to get out of hell. Because if you're panicking, you're just going to be trying a million different things that never really work. Because they're so focused on your present pain and they're not focused enough on your future freedom. So, facing the worst case scenario and being able to become non-reactive to it enough that you can strategize how to get out has a counterpart where we face the worst case scenario in our values and we're able to make a choice on what it is that we want to do. I'll give you an example of how I got out of one of the ways I've gotten out of my own hell. And back in 2018 was the first time I went no contact with my parents. And at that time, for me, facing the worst case scenario and facing hell and accepting the fact that I was in the bad place was admitting truly that I did not have the family that I thought I had. And this was such a threat to my own stability because I had built identities and beliefs and perceptions based on the close family that I thought that I had. And it was only when I was able to face the fact that they weren't as healthy or good for me as I thought they were, was I ever going to be able to make the right moves. And that no contact with mostly my mom went on and off for years while I was able to make my strategy. I didn't want to kind of be in that panic zone. I wanted to be in strategy mode, and I needed to like clear stuff. But I first went no contact with them in 2018 when they were in their 70s. And you know, there's like a lot of this sort of looming discourse around like, well, what if people die? What if, and my parents were at the age, it's like, well, what if they die and I've gone no contact with them? But that wasn't truly the worst case scenario in my values. I deeply value intimacy and I value honesty. And for me, the worst case scenario was not my parents dying while I was no contact or not speaking to them. The worst case scenario for me was my parents dying and never really having known me, never really having known what I really thought, what I really needed to heal. And that to me was the values counterpart of like the worst case scenario for me. So I could make a choice. Do I want to live out my worst case values scenario of like hiding the truth? Or like, was I really willing to face the worst case scenario that I didn't have like the family that I thought that I had? Like, which was I wanting to avoid? Was I wanting to avoid my values, or was I wanting to avoid what was hard for me to hear? So there's always a truth that is hard to know that we have to be willing to take in order to do the right thing. In The Good Place, they could only start to plot how to get out of the bad place once they realized it was the bad place. They go an entire season thinking they're in the good place. And for many of them, it's based on pure delusion. As they go on in the seasons and they start to see how they really behaved and responded, were they able to integrate that, yes, like maybe they hadn't really earned that place in the good place. So it was only when they were able to face the truth were they able to move ahead. So the first stage of healing is always facing the worst case scenario, is being willing to face the truth, which honestly not that many people are willing to do. But in order to have truly informed consent, you have to also see the worst case scenario of your values that you will be enacting if you don't look at the truth. So, the question we kind of gather around during our time together is like, what am I fighting for? So, are you fighting for the delusion that you're in the good place, or are you fighting for your values? Are you fighting to say, I don't want to live out the worst case scenario of my values. I don't want to say that I value something and then not be willing to do the courageous work to do it. So this is what I want people to think about. Um, I would love for you to just subscribe to my written newsletter in the link in my bio. And I would also love for you to subscribe to this channel. I'm in heavy experimentation mode, but it's very important for me still to show up. So thank you for being here. Thank you for your time, and I'll see you soon.